Hi, welcome back to the back porch with Feltalala. And we're feeling very Halloween right now. We premiered our pumpkin garland at a market on Saturday, and people just loved it. They absolutely enjoyed this little fellow. So we're thinking, you really do want to do Halloween, so let's do it. So we thought to go with the pumpkin garland, wouldn't it be nice to have a skull garland? And I made this little guy because I thought I wanted it to be about the same size as the pumpkins. And then you could mix and match. I kind of feel like he's maybe just a little bit too small. Maybe. We'll see. And we made this fellow who's clearly too large for a garland, but maybe we'll do some things with him. And these are other jack-o'-lanterns that we made. And there'll be another video for those hopefully soon. And then we made this kind of psychedelic skull, which is an option, inspired by the Mexican sugar skulls. And maybe what I'll do there is include some colors in your kit so that if you want to make your skull festive in that way and colorful in that way, you have that as an option. So let us begin. Smaller than him, bigger than him. That's the plan. So to make a nice skull, we're going to maybe less festive than him. There we go. They're all just going to kind of look at you while we're doing this. So we're going to start with some white. This is that wonderful Canadian wool. It's very delicately processed, and so you will find little bits of vegetative matter in it, and just pick it out. It's worth the payoff. So the payoff is to have this texture of wool, which I really like for needle felting. It can't be overly processed in order for that to happen. So we have this wool, and you'll have a small pad. This is my Wool Buddy. As you get into it, you might want to buy a Wool Buddy, but I've given you a smaller foam pad that you can work on. I've given you 2 needles because, in case you're new, the 2 things that people do at the beginning is they break needles and they stab themselves. So to avoid stabbing yourselves, maybe you bought a cot. But just be aware. Don't try to move too quickly and too forcefully, and try not to stab yourself. And not to break the needle is to go in and out in the same direction. You can do that on a diagonal, and you can do it horizontally, but just go out the same way you came in, because the needles do not bend, they break. I've given you 2 though, in case you break one. And hopefully, as you buy more kits, you'll end up with a bit of a collection of them. How does needle felting work? There are barbs at the end of the needle. There are barbs naturally occurring in the wool. And as we tap the needle in, you only have to go as far in as the barbs. But as we tap it in, these barbs are grabbing the barbs in the wool and pulling it up and entangling it. And it's through that entangling that we're able to sculpt anything, really, or if you're doing 2D, to paint anything. But this is sculpture, making these skulls. So I'm going to shoot for, I think about, let's go with this much wool. That is probably a little more than a gram, maybe 2. So we're going to begin. I want to make not quite a circle, a bit of an oblong. So I'm going to just twist and turn, and I want it to be fairly firm. So folding that over on itself and then tapping it in. Do you see? I tap, straighten and out, and those fibers are entangling. And then I'm going to lift it up from here. See, can you see how it's becoming attached to the pad behind it? So I don't want it to do too much of that. So I'm going to lift it up. And then I'm going to roll it a little bit more and tap tap it a little bit more. I want this one to be firm. Some of our projects don't have to be necessarily really firm, but we're going to want to carve out the eyes and the nose and the cheeks and the mouth. And in order to do that, I need a firm background. For example, I felted this pumpkin more firmly than this pumpkin was felted. So you can see with the little guy, when his eyes and nose and mouth got added, it kind of distorted his face, like it pulled it in. So if you're firmer, if the thing that you're working on, if you felted it more firmly, you're more able to carve without losing the structure and the integrity of your background piece. In the end, I felt it kind of worked for this guy because now he's got this smirk. He's got a little cheek smirk going on there. So it accidentally worked. But for our skulls, let's make them fairly firm. So I'm going to pull that up. I don't want it to attach to the background. And then I'm going to fold again and tap. So the top of this guy is really thicker. He looks like an alien from this perspective, which wouldn't be out of line for Halloween either. So he's quite thicker on the top than he is on the bottom. So maybe I'll start thinking about that. Maybe I'll say, okay, here's the bottom largely done. So I'm going to roll more wool into the top. So if you get these little bits, just remove them. The white shows the bits the most. I spend a lot of time actually picking it before I send it to you, and I will miss some. The more I tap, the firmer it becomes. Because it entangles, it becomes more dense. Now, I'll go one more round. And I think we did grab too much. So I want it larger than, you can just pull it. You just pull it apart. These fibers are all very short. When you get into longer fibers, they're more difficult to pull apart. There's a method to that, but we're just working with short fibers now. So that's fine. They just come apart pretty easily. So this side, there's our chin, right? Our chin is happening. And I have this extra wool up at the top. Now this wool, I'm going to continue to wrap around the top half of the skull. It's like it's got some kind of wonky hair at this point. Let's pull that. Let's pull that down. Maybe around a bit. So using the needle a lot, but also using our hands. See the shape I'm going towards? So you have got the jaw. Feel your own head. You've got the jaw, and then you've got the back of your neck and those two occipital bones, and then big old skull. Big old skull. Okay, so let's look at where we're at now, working towards this skull shape. I want a back of the head here. I don't want him to be too thin. I need space there for the eyes and the nose, mouth. So you look at this point at what you have, and I feel like I need more width, a little bit more width up here. Although it's not so bad. That occipital bone, I'm just making that more pronounced now. Looks pretty good. So the mouth is going to go here, and the nose here, and the eyes. But don't I want more of a forehead? I really do think that I do. So let's bring this down a bit. So you can change things as you go. You can change things just by tapping them. If I don't like the shape that I have here, if I have a little bump there, I just tap, 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 and that bump is gone. I want to create those occipital bones. I tap, 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 tap. And I don't know what that notch is called that's between the two bones, but I want a notch there. So just tap it in. You can create any shape that you want, anything that you want, and you can change it. You may at this point say, what I really want to do is add a little bit up at the top. I want a little bit more thickness here for those cheekbones and room for the eyes, and that's easily enough done. So we'll take a little bit more of our wool, and we're going to add it just by tapping it in. So you can build up any section of the skull as you go along. If you need more, if you don't like the shape that you've started with, you can add more cheek, you can add more forehead. Just take another little bit of the white. And that's what I was feeling there. So I know I've got the back. So there's the back and there's the front. So I'm liking this. I'm liking the shape with the additional wool. I'm liking it more. And if you put one layer on and it's not what you want it to be, then add another layer. You can change everything as you go along. So there's the back of the head. So we said it was entanglement, right? So as I tap these bits in, they're entangling. They're becoming one with what we had previously. We've added more bulk up at the top of the head for eyeballs and for cheeks. So just keep working on your shape until you get the shape that you want. You can feel free to Google the skull anatomy if this isn't enough information, but we're going to shoot for this guy, for something very similar to this guy. So you see this is higher. I don't want this here, so I just tap it. I just tap it in. Well, now what do I have? As I say with the as I say with the kits where you need to make a ball, like with the pumpkins or the acorns, you have seen millions of balls in your life. So really, this kind of curved head shape, you've seen it a million times. So if you just keep tapping and moving your skull, just keep moving it. Just keep tapping. If you see a little chunk coming out, just tap it in. Tap it in. It's not something that you honestly need to think about very much. You already know how to do it because you know what it's meant to look like. And you just move it and tap it and move it and tap it. And you'll create the curve without even thinking about it. Maybe kind of like the way you were really surprised the first time that you drove a car, that the car was just going where you wanted it to go and you didn't think about it too much. Or catching a ball. Here we're making a ball shape, but when you catch a ball, apparently you're doing so many computations somewhere in your unconscious mind that allow you to catch a ball. But of course, that's not our experience of it. Our conscious experience of it is that it's just natural. We're just catching a ball. Okay, does that look like a human head? It does to me. I think that's a good looking skull. So, skull shape. Let's take a look. Yeah, it's a good shape. And you see, we did definitely go bigger than this. We went twice the size of this. And it's easily 3 times the size of the pumpkin. But I think it's a nice size for a garland. I think so. You are completely in control. It is up to you. You can make them bigger or smaller, whatever you want to do. But I think I like this. So, and it's not rock hard, but it's pretty firm. So I think we're all right to carve into it. So what comes next? We have our general shape. So I think a nice place to start here is with the eye sockets. So we want 2 of them. We want them to be fairly even. We want to have some forehead, I think. So I'm going to start just about here. And when I say carve it in, I'm just going to tap a little more firmly so that we end up with an eye socket and a circle. And the more I tap, the deeper that socket is going to go in. So before I go too much further, I'm going to start the second one. I'm going to use my needle as a guide. Say, okay, I want it that same height on the other side. I'm going to go straight down a bit. Okay, so we're just tapping. Tap, tap, tap. That compresses the wool by entangling it. We compress it. And the thing with the skull is that the eye sockets are fairly large. I think that's what gives it its distinctive look. Fairly large skull. Into the back. So that looks more like a face than a skull to me. So I don't think we're there yet. We need the eyes to be kind of larger than that. Big eye sockets. To carve in the line of this circle, I am pulling a little bit, but don't put too much stress on this needle. You're going to break it. So it's okay to just very gently, though, come along and make the line of that circle. Again, you've seen so many circles in your life. Don't overthink it. I like the depth of those sockets. I think the brow is kind of fun. Still feels to me like those eyes could be bigger, but let's put in the nose and mouth and determine. You can also decide, do you want your sockets to be super round or do you want them to be more of an oval? That is your call. Okay, so this here, this protuberance, do I like it? I think it's a little too protrudy. Is protrudy a word? I don't know. But I'm just going to tap it down to make it a little more flat for this part of this skull. There, I think that's better. Now, the nose, what I like about this nose is that it's kind of an upside down heart, right? I enjoy that about it. And here, this guy is more of a triangle. So you can do a triangle, or just bring that centerpiece up a tiny bit. And then these edges down to give yourself that upside down heart, I think makes a nice nose. So I'm going to, again, use my needle as a guide. I'm coming down between the center of those two eyes. And that's where I'm going to want the nose to start, here. Now come straight on down. Start it again at the top. Every time I poke in and compress the background, I'm really carving. I'm carving into the wool base that I've created. So I'm going to go with 2 lines. And then I'm going to make them larger. Do that. So I have the 2 lines like this. So then fill that out a bit. And if you're watching this before you do it, this may seem a little confusing, but when you have it in your hands, which is the beauty of felting, right? It's when it's how very tactile it is. When you have this in your hands, it's going to make sense. This guy's looking creepy to me so far, which is not inappropriate for Halloween. But some people like their Halloween sweet, and some people like their Halloween scary, and some people like their Halloween lovely, and some people like their Halloween psychedelic. How do you like your Halloween? It's up to you. Make your skeleton right for you. The Mexican sugar skulls that are just so beautiful. It's a beautiful folk art of Mexico, and they're really honoring their dead, right, through that Dia de los Muertos tradition, and the beautiful sugar skulls that they make. So my little colorful festive psychedelic skeleton is not nearly as beautiful as the work that they do. But I wanted to give a nod to it because it's just beautiful. It's beautiful what they do. Spend some time Googling sugar skulls and learn about it, because it is a lovely and beautiful tradition. It goes back, I think, to the 1700s. Working with sugar, because they had lots of sugar, right? Working with sugar to create these beautiful, beautiful pieces of folk art to honor their dead. Is that what we do in Halloween? Do we think of it as honoring our dead, or are we just celebrating a bit of ghoulishness as we start to enter the long dark? Say, we're not scared of you, skeletons. You can't scare us. We're just going to play with you. We're so brave. We're so very brave. Okay. So I have got 2 eyes and a nose. And I'm going to want to even those eyes out a bit more. And when we add color to these eye sockets, we can change the size of it then. We can work on the shape of it then. But I think this is good.